pull that back up one more time. It disappeared off my screen, so that's why I was trying to figure out where it went. All right. Can you guys see that now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, so like Sarah said, we're going to be talking about high performance habits and developing a winning mindset. So first, I was just going to start off with just a little bit about me and my background and where I've been that's got me to where I am today. So a little bit about my personal story. And these are some pictures of me throughout the years. I moved to Texas in 2007, actually. I jumped on a plane with 2 suitcases full of clothes and moved down here and moved into my first apartment when I was 19 years old. When I had a blow-up mattress and a TV on a stand, and that's all I had in my entire apartment. I was selling cell phones at a kiosk in the mall, and then I got tired of that job and went to go look for a new one. And I came across a marketing position for AT&T. And so I went on an interview, and I went out and I found out quickly that it was door-to-door sales. After the interview, I called my mom and I was telling her about this job, and I was excited. And she's like, well, she goes, you know what happened to your brother when he went and did door-to-door sales and selling life insurance? He went into debt almost $5,000. And I remember just stopping right there, and I was like, Mom, there's a big difference. I can sell. Like, I believe in myself. I can sell. And so I started doing door-to-door sales for AT&T. And 6 months later, I moved to Orlando, Florida for an opportunity to open a new office there, selling office supplies, business to business. And then that office actually shut down because the owner of it, she got pregnant and decided she didn't want to run it. So I moved back to Dallas, and I got an opportunity to go work for TXU selling electricity door to door. And I took that opportunity and decided that I was going to work my hardest that I possibly could to make this a great opportunity. I ended up breaking their sales record for in a week, in a month, and then in a year. And then I decided that it was time to make the jump into corporate America and go after a job with my first salary, because I'd never had a job that had a salary before. And so I went in, and it was an inside sales organization. And so I was dialing the phone between 125 to 150 dials a day. But when I first came in, they didn't want to give me the salary that I was asking for. And so I told them, well, we can get creative then. So how about we do a 90-day checkup, and at 90 days, if I'm not meeting or exceeding the goals, if I'm meeting and exceeding the goals, then I get the raise that I want up to this amount. And they said, okay, that works. And 90 days into it, I'd broken their sales record because I worked harder than everybody else was just staying there. But at the same time, I didn't sacrifice any of my lifestyle. I still had my weekends off. I was still able to go home and relax in the evening. But so that ended up with me moving a couple companies, and I ended up as the director of business development for a $35 million company when I was 23 years old and 24 years old. And so after a while of working in that and seeing that the person that was above me and the person that was above him didn't like their lives, they didn't like what they were doing. It sucked. We're working in cubicles. Yeah, I'm sure there was fun times here and there. But I've been telling my parents since I was 8 years old, I wanted to start my own company. It was always, actually, I always told them I wanted to start my own companies. It was never one company. I always wanted companies. And so I was talking to my dad about it, and I was telling him, I think I want to go back to school. And my dad's like, that doesn't make any sense for you at this point in time. Don't do that. If you want to start something, go start it. Just do it. And so I essentially started over. I'd actually started this company that's here in the middle of this boat fender. I started a boat fender business first, which instead of having the regular boat fenders that you see hanging off the side of a boat, you have skulls. And then we made chili peppers, and we made fish and stuff that would hang off the side of your boat. But about a year into it, I found out that my business partners were into drugs, and I wasn't interested in that at all. And so I told them that it was probably best that we part ways. But at the boat show, right before that ended, I'd met another guy who had a paddleboard shop, and he had 12 paddleboards in a trailer on Grapevine Lake. And I told him that I wanted to open a new one on Louisville because it had so much more traffic, so many more people. It was more accessible, the location that I wanted and everything. And so I ended up starting a paddleboard and kayak rental business that turned into a full retail store with a flyboard and all sorts of different stuff. And I ended up leaving that company at the beginning of 2017. And we ended up with 120 paddleboards by that time, 60 kayaks, and a club of over 100 members that were coming on a normal basis and paying monthly dues. So it gave us residual income. And so again, I started over. Actually, at the same time as that, I had a magazine. So I had both of these going at the same time. And I started out in the magazine. He came to me with this opportunity that I can do sales for him. I ended up as the CEO of the magazine and learned how to create a magazine, learned how to, we had a radio station, learned all sorts of different stuff about marketing, sales, and putting all the different pieces together, that made it so I could start the marketing company that I have now. And so I've been able to turn all of that into a multi-million dollar marketing company. And so these are just a couple pictures of where I first started. This picture up here in the left-hand corner was in my office at my surf shop when we very first got the location. And I just had to get started. And then that's why I have on here failure. Failure is part of it. I learned that a lot in skateboarding. That failure is just part of progressing. It's part of learning anything new. And so I had to know that I was going to fail at some stuff. And my old boss actually told me that it's probably not going to be the fender business or DFW surf that was going to make me $1 million. But it was probably going to be in my 10th company. And he knew that I was going to fail a couple times. But I only failed with the hydro fenders. All the rest of them turned into other stuff. And so I was able to pivot. And that's why, so one of my quotes here that I have on here is, I can accept failure, but I cannot accept not trying. And that's by Michael Jordan, who is one of my idols, essentially, growing up. On an entire wall in my room of Michael Jordan stuff. It was kind of ridiculous, and my mom gave me a lot of crap for spending my money on buying $200 pair of shoes when I was 12 years old. But it's what was important to me at that point in time. So the next thing that I put on here is pivoting. When it comes to like failure and learning how to pivot to the next thing, the quote that I have down there is actually something that I wrote at about 2 o'clock in the morning. My roommate from Florida had taken her own life, and I was just thinking about it and writing, and it was about 2 a.m. And I wrote down that too many people focus on what was or what is instead of focusing on what can be or what will be. The world's always moving, and you have to move with it. You can't stick too much to things, and you got to learn to let them roll off or let the nose roll off, just like in sales, and move on. So that's just a little bit about me. And this is where my agency started, down here in the corner. That's my dining room in my house. Just like a lot of the different Silicon Valley things that you see, I started off in my dining room. I had a full office set up with people coming to my house every single day to work. And so I was able to take that and then get an opportunity to get an office, and everything grew from there. And now we have 22 employees who work for us on a daily basis. And everybody's remote right now, which I'm sure that everybody can understand and relate with. So that's actually been a blessing as well, because it made us get even clearer on all of our processes to make sure that everything could run smoothly, even if we weren't around each other. So we'll go ahead and jump down into the high performance habits. So a lot of these are actually out of a book that I recommend, and I have a whole list of books for you guys actually. At the end of this, I have 6 different books. A lot of them I will talk about during each different part of this, because they've all made big impacts in my life and the people's lives that I've given them to. I've given away a lot of those books, and then I also, a lot of times, I'll just buy books for people. People are like, "Oh, I haven't read that yet." I'll just go on Amazon and ask them for their address and send them a book, because they've made such a difference in my life. So high performance habits, they help high performers stay on top of their game, but these are not unconscious habits. These are habits that are very conscious and efforts that they use to stay on top. And so in high performance habits, this is actually from studies that have been done in 190 countries with over 2 million data points of analyzing people for educational purposes. I think it was the University of Pennsylvania that was working on it, their psychology department. So these come from science and from data, and not just from somebody who's telling you what you should be doing in life. So the number one thing that is on there, oops, wrong button, is seek clarity or seeking clarity. So a big thing is people will say, get clarity. Well, clarity is something that you should always be seeking, because you're going to continue to go after it. And so high performers, they seek clarity in everything that they do. I know that when you guys talked last week, or the person that you guys talked with last week was talking a lot about your guys' legacy and everything like that. And that's the first part about seeking clarity is, what do I want to be remembered for? What do I want in my life? And asking yourself those things that give you a sense of purpose and direction. And so first you need to know what kind of person you want to become. This could be kind, attentive, humble. And then you need to ask yourself, have you been living that way to date? And then what needs to change. So, and then after that, you're going to go in and you're going to look at it and find out, all right, so what habits do I need to put in place? What things do I need to put in place to get and become that person? And so you start developing those skills and going after those skills. And so as you're seeking clarity, you want to do, this is what I do with my team every single Monday, is we set SMART goals. I'm sure people have probably heard that before. They're specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And so each Monday we go over, I make it very simple. These are weekly goals that go along with our larger goals. And so each person does one personal goal and one professional goal, because I'm very big on making sure that you take care of your personal life as well as the business. Because if you're not taking care of yourself personally, you're not going to be able to perform at your best for the business. So I'm very big on, if you need to go to the doctor, go to the doctor. If you need to take a break, take a break. And that's something else that is in here when it comes to the next slide about generating energy, is going to be the next one, is taking breaks. You want to make sure that you're taking breaks. But the other part about seeking clarity is visualizing. So like Phil Mickelson, what he does when he walks up to take a putt is he visualizes it. He'll sit there and he'll visualize that putt going in, exactly how the ball is going to go, how it's going to roll into the hole. And he's going to visualize that 4 or 5 times before he ever takes a putt. If something gets messed up and while he's visualizing this, he'll step away from it, and then he'll visualize it again, and then go back, and then he'll go and make the putt. Same thing with another guy, Shaun White. For example, he had got on the cover of Rolling Stone. And Shaun White also visualizes every single trick that he does. You'll see him at the top of the runway during the Olympics, and he's sitting there, and you'll see him like look up over his shoulder, and then you'll see him make these different moves, and he's running through his entire run in his head before he ever steps foot on the pipe. He's landing every single trick in his mind multiple times before he ever goes down to take a run. And so visualizing is a huge part. And so there's another book that I'd read called The Miracle Morning, that made a big difference in my life. And that's about your morning routine, which most high performers have a morning routine. And so it goes over something that they call the savers, and that's silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing, which is journaling. And so taking those different things and having the morning routine, well, in that, I visualize what my day is going to be like. What emotions do I want to experience today? What things do I want throughout the day? What am I going to do, and what's it going to look like? Before I ever start my day, I'm setting my intentions for the day and what I want to come out of that day, which it sounds kind of weird at first to think about, but visualizing your whole day helps you to stay on track with where you're wanting to go throughout the day, because you've already mentally played through it a few times on what your day is going to look like. So that is the first one, is seeking clarity. Oh, did it go away? Keep getting these notifications. But yeah, so visualization and seeking clarity. The next one is generating energy. And so when it comes to generating energy, I know this is something that a lot of us have a hard time with, is having enough energy to do everything that we want to do in the day. And one of the best ways that I heard it put is that power plants, they don't have energy. They generate energy, and it takes power from one source and transforms it into another, and then it stores it and transmits it out from there. And one of the big things that stuck out to me was 42% of high performers were more likely to work out 5 times a week compared to underperformers. Because when you're working out, it gives you back, it reduces stress, it gives you dopamine, all those different things. And that's why they call it a runner's high, is because you're getting all of these positive things while you're going through and exercising. But at the same time, it releases the neurons that helps you. Does that take it away from everybody? Okay. It's like when I click on my other screen, sorry, it keeps giving me this thing that says you're presenting to everybody. And so when it comes,
still see everything.
all right. When it comes to generating energy, research shows that most CEOs are actually similar in energy level to professional athletes, because neuroscientists, they've proved that regular exercise increases the production of neurons in your brain that are related to learning and memory, and it also improves your mood and reduces stress. And these help you to have enhanced leadership abilities during the times that you need them. And so high performers, they make exercise a regular and scheduled activity, and they don't make excuses for skipping it, because they know that that's going to lead up to more things down the road. And a lot of times I'll even tell girls that I date that if I don't do my morning routine, it won't be good, because I will feel off. I have to make sure that I do these things every single day to make sure that I'm staying on the same exact track. And so the other part of it, when you have physical and then you have your mental energy. And so with your mental energy, high performers, their lives are just as complicated as everybody else's, but they're going to stay in a positive attitude, making sure that they're keeping positivity. And something that Oprah said that I really liked, and Sarah probably saw it, I put it up on social media actually last week, is that you have to be responsible for the energy that you're bringing into the room. Because the energy that you bring into a room, no matter where you're going, is going to change and shift what it's like in that room. Especially if you're somebody who is loud or anything like that and attracts attention, you got to make sure that your energy is good for everybody that you're coming into the room with, so that you're not bringing everybody down. You want to make sure that it is a great energy for everybody there. So that's just another thing, is making sure that you're going through and staying positive, because the positive results, or the positivity, helps you to get positive results, because you're not taking so much mental energy and dwelling on things of the past or dwelling on negative things. The positivity actually helps to generate more energy. And that's why a lot of times somebody will be a very positive person and people are like, how do you have so much energy all the time? And it's because they're just focused on the positive. I've been told that by people that, well, how do you always turn stuff into such a positive? And for example, last week actually, or the week before, I have a 6-month-old golden retriever. And in the middle of the night, I got up to get water. Well, he'd went out into my living room and decided that he needed to go to the bathroom. So he took a pretty big crap right on my carpet. Well, I have a Roomba, and the Roomba decided to turn on too. I didn't know any of this had happened. And so the Roomba went through and went and grabbed the poop, smeared it all over my floor, went around the corner, went across some cords, went over to these like rock climbing pads that we have, and ended up getting caught on one of those and flipping over. And so I went in the morning, I was like, what is this smell? Like, I can't find, oh my God. And I asked my roommates, I was like, did any of you guys step in poop last night? Like, how did nobody see this? It looks like somebody stepped right through it and tracked it all through. And they're like, no, we haven't seen anything at all. And then I was telling the story on my morning meeting with all of my employees, and I was telling them that, and they're like, how have you kept such a good attitude through all of this? It's like, well, crap happens. Literally, it happens. Like, it's fine. I got to pull that rug. He'd peed on it before anyways. I needed to get it cleaned anyways. Like, it's not a big deal. And they're like, I can't believe it. And then another one of my friends was like, well, you know what I would do if that happened to my Roomba? And I was like, yeah, you would throw it away. I was like, but that Roomba was expensive, and I don't make that much money an hour, and it's going to take me 1 hour to take it apart and clean every single piece of it and put it back together. So just an example, like, there's always a positive in something. You can always find a positive, no matter what it is. There's always a positive way to look at it. And so that comes into controlling your mind, which that has been one of the biggest things for me, is just controlling that I have the freedom to let anything that happens to me, I get to choose how it affects me. I get to choose what emotions come in, because emotions aren't real. You get to choose how you feel. I can't say emotions aren't real, but you get to choose which emotions you experience. So by choosing which emotions you're going to experience through each thing, it helps you to generate energy, because you're not dwelling on the negative things that are happening. The next one is, so in the book, it's called Raising Necessity, which I like better, Raising the Stakes. So when it comes to setting goals and going after different things, high performers will actually tie them to different things. And so when it comes to raising necessity, it's about raising the stakes. So you're raising the stakes, so you're more likely to actually hit those. Just like you guys do, servant leadership is a great thing about this, about raising the stakes. Is we're taking this, and it's not about our inward stuff that we're trying to achieve, but if you put outside obligations on what you're trying to do, it's going to help you to get to those, goals. Because now you have this outside obligation. Just like most of the time, if you tell somebody you're going to do something, you're more likely to do it than if you just keep it in your mind and decide, oh, yeah, that's what I want to do. Well, you can easily talk yourself out of it. That mental talk, by raising the stakes and putting somebody else in it. For example, for me, my business completely changed with my media agency when my brother moved down here. My brother moved here when I very first started the company. He was the first employee of the company, essentially. and I couldn't offer him a salary or anything. He just trusted me that he could move here. I said, you'll have a roof over your head. You'll be taken care of. Don't worry about it. We're going to build this. Well, I raised the stakes by bringing him in because now I have to provide for my brother, who I actually, when I was younger, got kicked out of the house for being a bad influence on. So to come full circle, I now have this, that now I have to essentially redeem myself as the big brother and I brought him into my business, and now I have to make sure that he's successful. So now I have an outside obligation that's making me work even harder to make sure that it happens. Another thing about raising the stakes is sharing your goals. I see a lot of things out there that are like, don't tell anybody what your goals are, just go make them happen. All of those sort of things where it's like, don't tell people this. I'm very big on telling people. Sarah can probably tell you, I've told her things that I'm like, I'm going to do this in 3 years. I'm going to do this in 2 years. I'm going to do this. And I'm always saying what I'm going to do because that helps to raise the stakes as well. Because now I'm accountable to other people, but I'm also bringing it to life by saying that this is what I'm going to do and this is what I want to do. So by sharing your goals with others, it will actually help you. And a lot of times what ends up happening is I'm telling so many people with the things that I want to do and what I'm working on and what I'm going towards. I end up finding people who help me to get me to every single thing that I want to, because I'm telling people that I need help and this is where I want to go. So they end up helping me because people's human nature is to help. So if you're telling them that this is what you want to do, people are going to want to help you. That's why somebody is always like, oh, I know a person that does this. I know a person that does that, because it's your second nature that you want to help. And so by sharing your goals with people, you're going to get closer to them because you're going to find people that are going to help you. I can name 5, probably 10 people off the top of my head that have helped me from one situation into the next, or from one business into the next. And also by keeping those relationships, and they've always transferred from one thing. It's like building equity. You got to keep those relationships good because they're going to help you on to the next thing that you're going on to. Which there's another great book called The Power of Who. And it's all about how the people that you know can help you to achieve anything that you want in life. It's not about just going and finding new people. You just have to let these people know what you're doing, and they're going to want to help you. So raising the stakes is the next thing. So just make sure when you're setting goals and you're setting things that you want to do, that you're tying them to something else outside of yourself. Because just doing it yourself, you're more likely to be like, no, it's fine. I'm not going to do that today. But once you have expectations of somebody else, you're more likely to actually complete it. Kind of like this week, the gym's finally opened back up. I didn't want to get up at 5:30 a.m. on Monday. I did not at all, not one bit. But I knew that if I didn't get up and go, I know all the guys at the gym that I go to like classes, and I knew that they were going to text me and call me out because I took a spot that somebody else could have took who actually would have showed up to the class. And I also knew that this is what I want to happen. I need to get back into the gym routine because I miss it as part of my morning work or my morning routine. And throughout quarantine, it made it a little bit harder for me. I wasn't keeping up as well as I normally do. So make sure that you're also sharing your goals with other people. So the next one is increasing productivity. So a lot of times the biggest one for this is right here in the corner. I put a picture of emails. People spend an average of 24% of their day checking their email account and replying to emails. And so one thing that I did a while ago was I actually set aside specific times that I'm going to do email. So I'm not constantly in there every single day doing emails. Because what ends up happening is then I go from that, and then my mindset gets shifted into something else, and now I'm into some unimportant tasks. So making sure that you're focusing on important work and not on unimportant tasks, which also helps when you're seeking clarity at the beginning of your day and making sure that you're setting out exactly what you're doing. And then the next one is fake deadlines. Those are those deadlines that you set, but deep down, you don't really have to hit that deadline. You know that you can get out of it. And so by setting fake deadlines, you're really just faking yourself out because you know that you're not going to do what it takes to get there. And a lot of times those come from biting off more than you can chew. You're setting a fake deadline for because you have this big project that you need to do. And so that's the goal. And so that's why the next thing in here is breaking down big projects into smaller bite-sized things that have real deadlines. They have to get done so that this next thing can happen. So by breaking down those, you're separating that unimportant work you're separating those into important work tasks instead of just unimportant tasks that's not going to get done because it's this huge deadline. It's completely overwhelming. And it's just not going to happen. So make sure that you're increasing your productivity through doing that. Just taking those important things and making sure that what I call a power list each day, I write down the 5 things that I want to have happen that day that I'm going to accomplish, and that means that I won the day. If I accomplish those and I don't accomplish the other 100 things, because there's literally always something I could be doing to better my business or to better myself. And so if I do these 5 things, I feel like I won the day. And so by writing those down at the start of your day, you're going to stay more focused on making sure. And then at the end of the day, you're going to feel a lot more accomplished. The next one is a giving mindset, which is great for the Rotary and just servant leadership in general. Is having a giving mindset. There's a great book that I recommend everyone read called The Go Giver. The Go Giver, it's about having a giving mindset in this guy that goes from just trying to close sales into learning that if you give, you get. My big thing is I'm always about providing value first. Even when I'm going to do sales for my company today, I'm always trying to provide value first to the other person before I ever ask for anything in return. But also just high performers, they appreciate people, their coworkers, they notice things, they cheer people on, and they're just more happy, and they're not worried about rejection and stuff either. They're always asking for candid feedback. How can they get better? Because they're always looking for that next step on how they can get better. So they're asking for honest, candid feedback without a fear of being judged or rejected or considered weak. Because at the very beginning, you've already set out, well, these are my intentions. And you know what? If I look weak, that's fine. If you're going to judge me, I understand you're not the right person to help me get here. And you're not the right person for me to give to, because you don't understand the same mindset of, if you keep giving and giving and giving, you end up receiving. It just happens. It's the law of reciprocation. So by giving, I did a lot of stuff at the beginning of my business where I gave away a lot of different things to different clients, just to gain that trust and to show value first to them. Well, it ended up, I still have the first 3 clients that I started my agency with in 2014 are still clients to this day, because it was always about having a reciprocal relationship and making sure that I'm always giving. A lot of times I'll give more than I get in return, just because that's who I am, and part of what what not my mindset or mantra, but for my goals in life is to help 1,000 people to achieve their dreams or to achieve something that they never thought that they could. Because I've always been able to get outside of my own mind and get outside of where I ever thought that I would achieve. And that's always been by people giving me a chance. Somebody gave me a chance and I took that chance and I made something of it. And so I'm always about giving people chances, giving people opportunities to better themselves, and also stepping outside of my comfort zone and accepting things, even knowing I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I bet I can figure it out real fast. The internet's a crazy thing, and literally anything you want to learn out there, it's online. So my brother and I say that we built this agency on Google because we learned everything that we know through the internet, and through experience, just time trying different things. And then our other partner has had an agency for 10 years too. So just through a lot of trial and error and just putting ourselves out there, getting rejected a lot of times, getting feedback, all those sort of things, and then taking those and fine tuning it on how to get better. So giving is a huge thing. It's something that I'm very big on. I love giving stuff away. I'd rather give things away than actually receive them. I don't like receiving gifts. I'd rather go and work for whatever I need, but I would rather give stuff away all the time. When people are like, "Oh, I like that." I remember one time I went to, I don't know if everybody's here in Dallas, but they have this thing called the Margarita Ball in November. And I was literally, a guy was going down the road and he's like, "I like your tie, man." I was like, "You want it?" And I literally took my tie off and gave it to somebody else, because they said they like it. So I just like giving things away. But so having that giving mindset will help you to have a positive mindset as well, because you're more about, what's the word that I'm looking for? You're more grateful for every single thing. And you're grateful for those relationships and being able to give stuff to people. So giving mindset is number 4 or number 5. I don't remember. I stopped putting the numbers on here, it looks like. But the next one is demonstrating courage. So this is a huge thing for me. And something that I learned very young in life actually is that you got to take risks. My parents, I come from a very safe family. My dad's a teacher. My mom works in the hospital. And they told me the reason that they went after those jobs, and my dad told me it's because he loves teaching. but it's also a recession proof job. My mom said that she wanted to work in the hospital for the same reason, because it's a recession proof job. And so they were never about taking risks. And I grew up in Oregon. My dad had an opportunity to invest in Nike when it was a very small company, because he grew up in the same town that it was started in. He didn't take that opportunity because he said, why would I want these? They fall apart all the time. They give them to me for free and ask me to tell them what's wrong with them. And commerce was the big thing at the time. Well, then later on in life, he was a fan of IBM, and Microsoft came around, and he was into computers, and they asked him if he wanted to do that. And he's like, no, why would I want to invest in Microsoft? IBM is the company that's killing, that's like the best company out there. And so multiple times it's just always about, for them, it was always about mitigating risk. And for me, I've always been very much about taking risks, because without risks, there's not much of a reward a lot of times. And the people that take the biggest risks end up with the biggest rewards, or they get an L, which you could call a loss, but I call it learning. You learn every single time you fail. If I hadn't have failed and learned that from one business partner, I wouldn't have put the same things in place with the next business partner, and having those upfront expectations about exactly the way that I wanted this relationship to go. And so by having upfront expectations, it helped me to be able to get into more things, because I had an understanding of exactly what we're supposed to be doing, what our understanding is of how we're going to work together, and then just taking risks. Because at the end of it, money's not really real. I know it's real, but at the same time, it's not really real. It's something that goes back and forth. So I have a higher risk tolerance than most people. That's why I do a lot of extreme sports as well, is because I like taking risks, and I like that next thing. I'm always going for that next trick, or the next, can I clear that jump on my motorcycle? I just got into motorcycles after being 30 years old. I decided I was going to start riding motocross. And that's something I'd never been, something that was completely new to me. And so at first it was scary going for the throttle, but then every single time you're gaining more confidence. And so that's another big thing, is having that confidence in yourself. And the way that you build self-confidence is by keeping promises to yourself. In your mind, you're promising yourself these things all the time, that I'm going to do this. I'm going to get up tomorrow and I'm going to go do this. You build self-confidence, and you build that confidence by keeping those promises to yourself that you're going to do this. You're going to do that, whatever it may be, but keeping those promises builds confidence. And then just trying things, and you master every little thing step by step by step by step. You're going to master it over time. It's going to suck. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be fun. And that's why one of my favorite things is that like life starts just outside your comfort zone, right outside your comfort zone. That's where you're growing. That's where you're learning. That's where it feels uncomfortable, but then now that's inside your comfort zone, because you've now mastered that. And so then there's something right outside of that. And so you get outside your comfort zone a little bit more, and then you master the next thing. And so then you're bringing all of these things inside of your comfort zone. But at first, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be fun. You're going to look like an idiot. I remember my first time going around the dirt bike track, and I fell at the bottom of a jump, and people are just whizzing past me. And I'm like, I feel like an idiot out here, but everybody started somewhere. Because if you just fail to start because I might fail, then you're not going to do much at all. You got to start and try and try. And now I can go out there and I can ride all the different things that I want to do. And that's just something I've learned in the past. Little over a year ago, I bought a dirt bike. And now I have a mini dirt bike track in my backyard, because I get obsessed with things. And so like different things like that, you just got to take that first step and take the next step. And every single time it's going to build on top of itself. And then you're going to become more confident in all of your abilities, because you're taking that step just to get outside, and you're demonstrating courage that it takes. Like it shows in this, a guy helping a girl walk on a slack line. I don't know if you guys have walked on slack lines before, but it's not easy. It's definitely something that is very challenging. So taking that step each way, and a lot of the times the way that I look at this as well is the other guy is essentially a mentor. So making sure that you have mentors that are helping you as you take those steps. There's somebody out there, I don't care what you're doing, there's somebody out there that's done it before. And with the internet, you can find those people easier than you could ever think. And then just reaching out and, hey, I really admire what you do. Would you mind giving me a few pointers, or would you mind helping me with what I'm looking to do? I've reached out to all sorts of random people, just asking them for help. Because like I said earlier, people, it's in your nature. You want to help. If somebody asks you for help, you're going to take a couple minutes and help this person out. Especially if that's something that's in your mindset of giving. And so asking for help and finding a mentor, that's a huge thing. when it comes to moving into new territory, is finding somebody that's better at it than you, and then getting pointers from them. Not being afraid as well as part of demonstrating courage to reach out to them and ask for that help. Because if you don't ask for the help, they don't know that you need it. And so a lot of times people will just not say anything when instead of just asking somebody because they're afraid they're going to look dumb or they're going to look weak or they're going to judge them. Oh, you don't know how to do that already? Like, no, I don't. Can you show me? Oh, I was asking. Otherwise, I wouldn't ask you. So just asking those sort of things, you'll be really surprised at how many people actually want to help you take that next step into what you want to do. And that's what I have is that's the 6 steps as far as high performance goes. And then this is my favorite quote. I actually have a painting of it in my house. Our ultimate freedom is the right and power to decide how anybody or anything outside ourselves will affect us. I heard that quote probably 10 years ago, 12, no, probably 12 years ago. And it changed my life because I was like, wow, I do have the power. I get to decide how anybody or anything affects me. And so I'm able to move past things and learn through all the rejection. If you want to talk about rejection, go do door-to-door sales. You'll have somebody slam the door in your face, a dog chase you off, somebody point a gun at you because you live in Texas and you're knocking on their door. Different things like that. I've had all sorts of different things happen, but I get to choose how those things affect me. Am I going to let this scare me and I'm not going to go do it again? Like all those different things. And so by choosing that, that's going to be the first step in really understanding that you get to choose it every single time something happens to you. And you're like, man, I can't believe that happened. Or a lot of times what I hear is people doing like negative self-talk. And what they'll do is like, oh yeah, that would happen to me. Well, you're putting that out in the universe. That's how you get treated. So making sure that you're also controlling your internal self-talk about deciding how things are going to affect you. A lot of it's internal. You go through so much more agony and pain in your head than you ever really experience in real life because you're playing out all of these situations and you think that something should be one way when in reality it's not that way. And so you're really causing all of this own hurt and you're really draining your own energy by letting those things affect you in that way. And it's like, some people are like, well, you're just pushing stuff down and not dealing with it. No, you still need to deal with those things. But at the same time, you just need to make sure that they're not affecting you and taking complete control of you. So that's what I have. Ooh, I just locked my computer. There we go. But yeah, so those are the top 6 habits that are in this book that I highly recommend that everybody gets. And these are different habits that each day that I'm trying to implement every single day into my life. A lot of times I get off track. Nobody's perfect. Quarantine was really hard on keeping a workout routine. Luckily, I have a lot of outdoor stuff that I enjoy doing. So I get a workout through going and playing outside. Like when it rained this weekend and we decided to kayak the creek behind my house in the middle of Dallas. Random thing we decided to do, and it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. So just going out and trying new things, demonstrating that courage, but then also just going out there and having fun, because at the end of it, that's what it comes down to. Make sure that you're having fun with what you're doing, and putting these different habits in place will definitely make a difference. As far as books go, these are some that you guys might want to write down. I can put it in the chat real quick. Number 1 is Extreme Ownership. Has anybody read that book before?
Yes, I have. It is incredible. And then there's a follow-up, Extreme Leadership, by the same 2 guys, and it's also incredible.
Yeah, Extreme Ownership is an awesome book that I recommend everybody read. I have all my employees read it because it's something about taking ownership of every single thing in your life. And so that also comes down to you having the power to decide how anybody's going to or anything's going to affect you. Then the next one that I have on here is High Performance Habits, which is a lot of the stuff that we went over today, but the book goes so much more in depth and literally it'll be life-changing. Reading this book, you'll be like, holy crap, I can't believe I haven't been doing these things. And these things will definitely help me. It's not going to be easy by any means to do that. The other one is called The Third Door. Has anybody read that? The Third Door is a really good book, and it talks about how in life he does an analogy with a club. So to get into a club, there's the main entrance, then there's the VIP entrance, which is for the rich, the people who are born into it, or the the celebrities. And then there's a third door, and that's one where you get out of the main line and you run down the street around the corner, go knock on the back door, nobody's answering. So then you decide to climb through the window of the kitchen, run through the kitchen, and get into the club. There's always some way to get into it. And he actually talks about one of his experiences of hacking the show The Price is Right. And that's how he got his money to start all of the whole journey that he goes on and what the book's about. He hacked The Price is Right and figured out a way to win The Price is Right as well by watching all of the shows and analyzing it, and then figured out a way to get in there because he always wanted to be on The Price is Right because that's what his grandma watched. So that was like a big thing for him. So The Third Door is a great book about there's always a way to do something that you want to do. The next one is The Go Giver, which is a great book about giving and how having a giving mindset, how giving a mindset always comes back and it always brings returns. But at the same time, it's not about the returns that you're going to get. It's about just giving. So the next one's Leadership by John Maxwell, which just came out last year. It's a great book about leadership, something I highly recommend everyone read. And I've had my leadership team at work read it as well. And then the final one is The Miracle Morning, which is about setting up a morning routine, having the same habits every single morning and how that affects your life. And it's a guy who talks about it, Hal Elrod, talks about how these things saved his life literally. And that's why it's called Savers, what I went over earlier, is because it saved his life. He got into a car accident and was extremely, extremely hurt and just out of commission for a year. And then it just talks about how he rebuilds himself and then goes through a divorce and all these different pieces. So it's a great book that I highly recommend everyone read and implement because it made a huge difference in my life. I used to say, I'm not a morning person. I can't get up early. That's just not who I am. My body needs to sleep until 7:30 in the morning. And then I started implementing this and getting up earlier and doing these routines, and just how much of a difference it made throughout my day and in my business and in my life in general was just awesome. It's something that I highly recommend. And I've had a few of my employees as well read that book when they're looking for different things. So I sent it in here, a list of those books in the chat that I highly recommend reading. Those are all different great books that helped me to have the same mindset that I do today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Danny. That was phenomenal. And I will definitely be looking up some of those books. I was on Amazon shopping while you were talking. I already bought one of them. So thank you so much. That was fantastic. Yeah. It's always a little awkward with presentations like this. Madeline can attest to that, as she was our first guest speaker last week. It's fun presenting to essentially a silent room, but you did great. So thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah, for introducing us to Danny today. We are running short on time, so we don't really have a lot of time for Q&A, but if you do have questions, you can drop them in the chat. I'm sure we can probably convince Danny to answer some questions for us via email, because I don't want to keep y'all late tonight. Some of us are on the East Coast and it is bedtime here. And Jake, yes, I will definitely email the list of books out. This has been recorded, so I will send out the recording as well. It'll be posted on our social media later. So anyone who was not able to watch it will be able to watch it, and you can watch it back. This is phenomenal. I personally have been obsessed with Rachel Hollis recently, and a lot of these same concepts. She goes over like waking up super early and, getting your morning routine in and things like that. So this is great. So thank you so much. We end all of our meetings with the Rotary 4-way test. So we're going to try this week to all say it together, despite technology, video, audio delays. I am going to share my screen and see if we can go through the 4-way test together. So all in unison now, the 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Number 2, is it fair to all? Number 3, and number 4, will it Awesome. Not too terrible. Again, thank you so much, Danny.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, if no one else has anything urgent and pressing, we're going to go ahead and adjourn. I will send a follow-up email on later tonight or tomorrow, and we'll see you all in a couple weeks. Next week is service week, so go out and serve the community around you, and we'll see y'all for our social meeting on June 2nd. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.